Hello everyone, welcome to the Geoecologist. I'm Dr. Krishnanand, and in this session we are going to talk about the concept of our solar system. So how did it evolve, how were the planets formed, and the characteristics of each and every planet and the other components of our solar system. But before we go ahead, please like and subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon for the updates.
So look into this particular image. What we see here is that our solar system consists of Sun as the main body, right? And 8 major planets. So 8 major planets are there, and apart from that we have dwarf planets, that is Pluto, Ceres, Eris, etc. And apart from that we have satellites and countless minor planets, asteroids, meteors, comets and debris as part of the solar system. Our solar system comprises of so many elements apart from the sun and the major planets, what we see here in this particular image. So now let's go further and look into the details. So now let's learn about the formation of solar system, that is nuclear disk model, that is Neo-Laplacian model. So nebular theory of Laplace, that is given in 18th century, that was in 1796, tried to explain the formation of solar system, as we learned in the last lecture as well. So but it had many drawbacks, as the theory was based on scientifically erroneous assumptions. So that was a problem with the Laplacian theory. So but one assumption got right was the solar system was born from giant gas of dust, that is the nebular hypothesis that we studied. So a giant interstellar cloud known as solar nebula, a vast swirling cloud of gas and dust, gave birth to our solar system. It basically means that our solar system finally condensed from this giant body of gases and dust, and gradually had a center that was occupied by the sun, and then the orbits of different planets and different bodies. So the nebula started its collapse and core formation started happening some 5 to 6 billion years ago. 5 to 5.6 billion years ago, and sun and the planets were formed after some time, that is 4.6 billion years ago. So this is the geological time that we say that is the origin of even Earth and the solar system. So that is the 4.6 billion years ago. So now let's look at our sun, which has different layers. So what we see here is the solar core, that is the interior part. Then apart from that, the next is the radiative layer. Then next layer is the photosphere. What we have is the chromosphere, and then there is corona. Alright, and then what we have is the outer part where we have the experience of solar wind. So if you want to do this particular way in which you want to understand the sun, you can understand it in numbers. So first is the core, then second is the radiative layer, third is the photosphere, then the chromosphere, then the corona part, and then we have the solar wind. So these are the 6 different layers that our sun has. So now let's get into the sun and understand what more we can learn. So center of the solar system that we know, and it is our nearest star. Then further, it is by far the most important source of energy for life on Earth. That is important. Then it is nearly perfect sphere of hot plasma. So we see this sun as a perfect sphere of what? Of hot plasma material. Then it is 150 million kilometer from the Earth. So the solar distance from the Earth is 150 million kilometer. And its diameter is estimated to be about 109 times than that of the Earth. So that is about 1.39 million kilometers of diameter. So that is important, that it is almost 109 times size in terms of the diameter, and its mass is about 330,000 times than that of the Earth. So it's a huge star that we see in the form of sun. Furthermore, if we look at the amount of total mass, it accounts for 99.86% of the total mass of our entire solar system. So what we see is that the other parts, the other planets of the solar system and other components of the solar system are just 0.14%. Now let's look into this table further. What we observe here is all these important planets that we have here, right? So all these particular planets are singular in number, that is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then we have the dwarf planets that is not considered a part of the main planet system of the solar system by International Astronomical Union. And apart from that, what we have here is the period of rotation, then period of their revolution, distance from sun, diameter, size, rank, then they have their moon's number listed here. So what we observe here is that in this table all those numerical details are being given. You can pause the video and you can write it for yourself, or you can learn it for yourself if you want to practice this, because many times multiple choice question come from any of these columns in terms of greater to smaller or smaller to greater, or which is larger than which one. So comparative questions can be asked or made from this particular table. So the astronomical unit that we say as AU is the unit of length. So this is 150 million kilometers that we study, that is 93 million miles. That is considered to be as one unit, one AU, that is one astronomical unit. So now let's learn about all the planets one by one. So the first one that we study is the closest to the sun, that is the Mercury. You can look into this image how Mercury looks. So Mercury's surface appears heavily cratered and is similar in appearance to the moon that we say. Okay, and it's important that it indicates that there has been no geological movement for billions of years here. Okay, and also that it has no atmosphere. So that is important to remember here. Having almost no atmosphere to retain heat, it's important that it has the highest diurnal range variation in the entire solar system, because there is no atmosphere that can hold on the heat. So we see a difference of diurnal range that is minus 173 degrees C at the night to 427 degrees C during the day. So that is the huge diurnal range of difference. Mercury is smaller than largest natural satellites in the solar system. For example, Ganymede, which is the largest moon of Jupiter, and Titan, that is largest moon of the Saturn. So it is smaller than Ganymede and Titan as well. However, Mercury is massive, that is it has more mass. So remember, even if it has lesser size, but it has more mass. So basically its mass is concentrated. Okay, its size is not more, but mass is more than Ganymede and Titan. So images obtained by Messenger spacecraft in 2004 that we see here, this image, revealed evidence for pyroclastic flows, that is the volcanicity, and also the water ice at Mercury's poles. As we see, the temperature also dips into the negativity, so it has also water ice at poles. Now the next planet in the list is Venus. So Venus is the brightest planet in the solar system and third brightest object visible from Earth after Sun and Moon. So remember, it is the third brightest in terms of what we see, Sun, Moon, and then comes the Venus. Then Venus is sometimes also called Earth's sister planet. So remember, it is very much similar to Earth's characteristic. That's why it is also known as Earth's sister planet, and sometimes also called Earth's twin, because of their similar size, mass, and proximity to the sun. That is the nearness to the sun. It has densest atmosphere of the 4 terrestrial planets that we study. So out of all the 4 terrestrial planets, which is the densest atmosphere? Which planet? The Venus has the densest atmosphere, and also the planet's surface is 92 times than that of the Earth. Remember, its atmosphere is 92 times bigger than our Earth's atmosphere. Now further, what we see here is that Venus is by far the hottest planet in the solar system. Now remember, Mercury is not the hottest. Venus is the hottest because of the greenhouse effect arising from high concentration of CO2 and thick atmosphere. Because Mercury doesn't have atmosphere and Venus has a thicker, bigger atmosphere, that's why due to greenhouse gas effect, Venus is the hottest one. So a day on Venus is equivalent to 243 Earth days. So remember, 243 Earth days is 1 day on Venus. It basically means it is talking about the rotation on its own axis. So its rotation is equivalent to 243 Earth's rotation. So that is the difference. But lasts longer than its year. So even its rotation is longer than its revolution around the sun. So 243 Earth days, what we see here is that its rotation is once in 243 Earth day, but 224 Earth day is the time it takes to revolve around the sun. So that's interesting fact. It rotates in the opposite direction, that is clockwise to most other planets. Other planets that we see largely rotate in anti-clockwise motion, but Venus rotates in the opposite direction, that is in the clockwise direction. And also in many ancient literature, Venus has been mentioned and referred to as morning and the evening star. Now let's learn about the moon first before the Earth. So moon is thought to have formed about 4.5 billion years. So we estimate 4.6 billion years of the solar system formation. Similarly, moon formation is also at the same time, almost about 4.51 billion years ago. So moon formed from the debris left over after a giant impact between Earth and Mars sized body that is called Theia. So remember, this Theia and Earth collided, and then the debris remain led to the formation of moon. So it is now generally believed that formation of moon was a resultant of the giant impact, or many times it's also called the big splat. So as Earth rotates, the moon's gravity causes the oceans to seem to rise and fall, as we know the tidal process. So there is a little bit of friction between the tides and the turning Earth, causing the Earth's rotation to slow down just as about in milliseconds, 1.4 milliseconds in 100 years. So Earth is slowing down in its rotation in milliseconds in 100 years. So remember, as Earth slows, it lets the moon move away with little distance. So that is about 4 centimeters per year. So now let's look at the characteristics of the moon. The diameter is only 1/4 of the Earth. The distance between Earth and moon is 384,400 kilometers. Furthermore, a ray of light from the sun takes about 8 minutes to reach the Earth. But from the moon, it takes just a second to reach the Earth. So that is what is reflected from the moon to the Earth. The moon is tidally locked to the Earth. So it is basically revolving around the Earth, and only one face of the moon is visible from the Earth because of this tidal locking. That is in about 27 days, which is the same time that it takes to complete one spin. So because of this time factor, that is the same time taken to spin as well as revolve around the Earth, only one face, that is what we call as the tidal locking, which is visible from the Earth. So tidal locking is the name given to the situation when object's orbital period matches its rotational period. So remember, rotation on its own axis and movement in the orbit around the Earth. If both the time is same, so we'll always be looking at the same face of the moon from the Earth, and that is also called tidal locking. Now remember the name of the people who first landed on the moon. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin was the second to step on the moon. So Neil Armstrong was the first person and Aldrin was the second person to step on the moon, and that mission is called Apollo 11 mission in 1969, 29th July. So that is important. Now till date, only 12 astronauts have walked on the moon's surface. So that is another important fact. Now let's look at this furthermore, that what is this concept of colonizing the moon? Do we have this ability that we can stay on the moon? What has been there as a part of discovery? So discovery of lunar water at the lunar poles, that is the poles of the moon, by Chandrayaan-1 renewed the interest in this concept of colonizing the moon. So exploration of the lunar surface by spacecraft began in 1959 only, when Soviet Union's Luna program was initiated. So Luna 2 made a hard landing, that is impact on the surface, and it became the first artificial object on the moon. So remember this Luna mission by Soviet Union. After that, the crew-based, it means people-based lunar surface exploration began only in 1968 when Apollo 8 spacecraft orbited the moon. So the following year, Apollo 11, that is Apollo lunar module, landed on moon, as we know, with 2 astronauts that we know. So in 2009, the Chandrayaan probe discovered that lunar soil contains 0.1% water by weight. So remember, it contains 0.1% water in terms of its weight. Now, there are not advantages, but there are several disadvantages in terms of colonizing the moon, if you want to understand. So for example, several disadvantages like the long lunar night would impede reliance on solar power, so that is important. Then moon is highly depleted in carbon and volatile elements like nitrogen and hydrogen, so these are life building blocks on our earth. So that is highly depleted on the moon, so that is another problem. Apart from that, we understand that there is a low gravity, that is about 1/6 of the earth, so that will also have long-term impact on the human health. So as we'll be learning about the earth separately, now let's look at the Mars. So Mars is often referred to as red planet because of the reddish iron oxide prevalent on its surface. As we know, that is what we see as a red planet. Mars also has the site of Olympus Mons, which is the shield volcano and which is the largest volcano supposed to be in the solar system. That is the highest known mountain, that is 24 kilometers, almost you see 4 times than our Mount Everest in the solar system. Apart from that, the Valley Marineris, that is basically the largest canyon in the solar system, is also found on Mars only. So Mars has 2 irregularly shaped moons, we know by the name of Phobos and Deimos, so which are thought to be captured asteroids. So they are supposed to be those asteroids that revolve around the Mars. So remember, liquid water cannot exist on the surface of Mars due to lower atmospheric pressure. So here is the catch, because there is too low atmospheric pressure, that is less than 1% of Earth. So that's why liquid form of water is not available on Mars. So Mars is less dense than the Earth, that is about 15% of the Earth's volume and 11% of the Earth's mass. So that is the comparative statistics. Now Mars consists of about 96% carbon dioxide, 1.93% argon and 1.89% nitrogen as per the discoveries being made. So the Mars 2020 mission launched by NASA on July 30th. Remember, this was the latest mission in search for ancient life, gathering various rocks and soil samples. So this was the latest one. But apart from that, what we see is that we have our own Indian system that we launched in 2014, that is known by the name of Mars Orbiter Mission, that is MOM. So remember MOM, that is MOM. So it was launched on 5th November 2013 by ISRO. So it is India's first interplanetary mission, that is important. Apart from that, it is the 4th space agency in the world to reach Mars after the Roscosmos, NASA and European Space Agency. So we are 4th in number in terms of the interplanetary mission and space agency to reach the Mars. So it made India the first Asian nation. In Asia, we are the first nation to reach the Martian orbit and the first nation in the world to do so in the first attempt. Remember, we are 4th in terms of the total attempts, but in the maiden attempt, in the first time to reach the Mars, we are the first nation in the world. So that is important. Apart from that, Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution, that is also known as MAVEN, is another spacecraft developed by NASA that went into the orbit around Mars to study the planet's atmosphere. So remember this name MAVEN, if it is asked as a question, that MAVEN studies the planet's atmosphere, and mission goals include determining how the atmosphere and water presumed to have once been substantia were lost over time. So MAVEN studies the atmosphere and the water component. Alright, so Indian mission is the Mars Orbiter mission. Now furthermore, let's learn about the Jovian planets, starting with the Jupiter. So Jupiter has 4 large moons, that is Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto. So these are the 4 major names called the Galilean satellites because Galileo discovered them. So remember Galilean satellites of Jupiter, that is Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto. So Ganymede is largest natural satellite in the entire solar system. Alright, it is larger than Mercury and 3 times larger than the Earth's moon. So that is our moon 3 times made is 1 Ganymede. Then it is the 3rd brightest natural object in the night sky after moon, Venus, and 4th brightest object after the sun. So that is important again. Because of its rapid rotation, that is once every 10 hours, So this is important, that its rotation time is just 10 hours. The planet's shape is oblate spheroid, that is slightly bulging at the equator. So remember, as our planet is also geoid and sometimes also called oblate spheroid, it's very similar to the Jupiter in terms of this shape of the planet, that is oblate spheroid. The latest probe made by the NASA to visit Jupiter is called Juno mission. So that Juno mission is basically for the probe related to Jupiter. Now let's look at our Saturn. That's another important and beautiful planet. So Saturn's rings are probably made up of billions of particles of ice and ice covered rocks. That is the latest information that we have got, that it is the ice and the ice covered rocks that form these particular rings around it. So that is important. Apart from that, what we see is Titan is the second largest moon in the solar system, that is larger than Mercury, and it is the only satellite in the solar system with substantial atmosphere, that is the nitrogen rich atmosphere. So these are the points to remember in terms of characteristics of Saturn. So now let's learn about the characteristic of these two planets, that is Uranus and Neptune. So what we observe right in the image as well, that the poles of Uranus lie in a plane where equators of other planets lie. So it's very much almost like a vertical shape what we see, while other planets are horizontal. So if you look here, the equator must be here, but its equator is almost vertical to this. So that is what has been explained, that it is almost like a vertical placement here in terms of the equator. And Venus and Uranus have strange retrograde rotation, that we see is the clockwise rotation. So that is only two planets in the solar system, Venus and Uranus, which have this clockwise movement, that is opposite of the sun's rotation. So that is important to understand. Then further, let's understand the characteristic of Neptune. So Uranus and Neptune, that is the ice giants, they are together also known as ice giants, are called twins of the outer solar system. Alright, they are surrounded by thick atmosphere of hydrogen and helium and contains higher proportion of ices. So that is why they are called ice giant. Neptune has the strongest sustained winds that we also know. That is about 2100 km/h speed of wind. So Neptune has this heaviest, or if you can say the strongest wind in the entire solar system in terms of all other planets. Let's learn about the concept of Pluto and Charon. So what is this? Pluto, that is 39 astronomical unit from the Sun, is the largest known object in the Kuiper belt. Remember GP Kuiper? So the outer ring, the outer part of the solar system, right? So that is called the Kuiper belt. So in the Kuiper belt, it is the largest object, and Charon is Pluto's largest moon. So this is Pluto and its largest moon is called Charon. So when discovered in 1930, it was considered as the 9th planet, and for a long time we have learned Pluto as the 9th planet, which finally in 2006 this concept, the definition of the planet, was given by IAU, that is International Astronomical Union, where a planet was defined as that a planet is an object that orbits the sun, has sufficient mass to assume hydrostatic equilibrium, that is a nearly round shape, and is not a satellite or moon of another object, and has removed debris and small objects from the area around its orbit. So this was the definition given in 2006 for a planet. So Pluto was not standing on to this particular definition, hence the concept of the 9th planet was withdrawn and it was considered as a dwarf planet. So IAU's definition of dwarf planet is that it is an object that meets planetary criteria except that it has not cleared debris from its orbital neighborhood. So because of this debris clearance, that is one important factor, it was not considered further as the 9th planet in the solar system, but rather part of the smaller planet, that is the dwarf planetary system. Now let's learn about what is this Kuiper belt. So this Kuiper belt is a great ring of debris that exists in the outer part of this solar system as we see. So this is what we see as the Kuiper belt, right? And it has lots of asteroids that we see, and it extends between 30 to 50 astronomical unit from the sun. So that is important. Pluto is the largest important body in the Kuiper belt, which is largely rocky and icy. And also remember, apart from that, it has different numerous objects which are similar in size to the Pluto. For example, Eris, whose diameter is 2326 kilometers. So if Pluto is considered a planet, then many other objects like Eris will also have to be considered as planets. Now, apart from this, there are certain missions that we need to understand. So what is this SOHO? SOHO is basically the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, which was launched in 1995. It is a project of international collaboration between European Space Agency and NASA. That's important. Its objective is to study layers of the sun and solar wind. So remember, SOHO mission was important to understand the solar flares, the solar wind, the sun's temperature. It approximated the solar temperature, that is about 5800 Kelvin. Then recent analysis of SOHO mission says that faster rotation rate in the core than in the radiative zone above. So it says that in the core of the sun, there is faster rotation of the plasma than on the radiative belt. That was one of the major findings of the SOHO mission. Now, another concept is, what is a sunspot? So the sunspots are visible dark patches in the sun's photosphere. Remember the bifurcation of different layers of the sun? So sunspots are where? In the photosphere. They are slightly cooler than the surrounding photosphere. Remember, sunspots are the cooler parts, but even if they are cool, they are very hot. In relativeness, we are saying. So they are slightly cooler than the surrounding parts of the photosphere. That's why they appear darker in images. Now, next important question is, what is a solar flare? So let's understand. A solar flare is a sudden flash of increased brightness of the sun, right? The increase of brightness is because of the release of energy. So that is about 1020 joules of energy is released when a solar flare release is said. So it is important observable event, and the major event can emit up to 1025 joules of energy as well. Now let's look further and understand the concept of solar wind as well. So the solar wind is a stream of charged particles released from the upper atmosphere of the sun called the corona. So these charged particles are released from the corona of the sun. And what is geomagnetic storm that is related to this? So it is basically a storm that is commonly referred to as solar storm as well. So it is basically a temporary disturbance of the Earth's magnetosphere. Remember, this is Earth's magnetic field which is being disturbed by this storm because it has charged particles. So that is where solar winds are important. They give shock waves, and it also leads to the disturbance in the Earth's magnetosphere. Now let's see some visuals of these solar flares. They are visible mostly near the pole areas. In the Scandinavia, if we travel, you can see these solar flares, and they are known as aurora borealis. That is the northern and the southern lights. So these solar flares, when impact the magnetosphere, it leads to ionization and excitation of the atmospheric constituents, and further emits light of varying colors and complexity, which looks beautiful, and many of the photographers and tourists, adventure enthusiasts, travel long ways to see these solar flares, the aurora borealis, which we also famously know by the name of northern lights or the southern lights. So where can we see this? In the countries like Iceland, Alaska, Canada, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Greenland. So remember these 7 nations: NSG, CIA and F. That is how you can remember the names. This is the first letter of each country. If you see, Iceland, Alaska, Canada, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Greenland. So in short, you can remember by this name NSG, CIA and F. Now furthermore, let's observe some facts about the moon as well. So its shape is scalene ellipsoid, that is due to the tidal stretching that we say. It is the 5th largest natural satellite in the solar system. The moon is the 2nd densest satellite after Jupiter's Io. Then moon is moving approximately 3.8 centimeter, that is about 4 centimeter away from the Earth every year. Moonquakes are also caused by the gravitational influence of the Earth. That is important. Further, if we look at this, we can summarize that Mercury has 0 moon, Venus has 0 moon, Earth we know that we have only 1 moon, Mars has 2, that is Deimos and Phobos. Further, Jupiter has 79, that is Ganymede is the largest. Saturn has 82, Uranus has 27, Neptune has 14. And apart from that, the dwarf planets, we see Ceres has no moon, Pluto has 5 moons, and Charon is the biggest one. Then Haumea is having 2 moons, Makemake is another planet, a dwarf planet that has 0 moon, and Eris has only 1 moon. Now let's look further in the concepts of meteor and meteorites. So what are these? Meteor is a small heavenly body of rock boulders that burn in the outer atmosphere, and it is known as meteorite when it falls on the ground. So that is the difference. So meteor is only in the atmosphere. Meteorite is when it reaches the ground. For example, if we see Lonar Lake in Maharashtra, also known as Lonar Crater, is notified by National Geographic as Heritage Monument at Buldhana district in Maharashtra. It is understood to be the resultant of a meteoritic impact between 35,000 to 50,000 years ago. Apart from Lonar Lake, there are also other places like Dhala Crater, that is in Shivpuri district in MP, which is about 14 kilometers in diameter. Ramgarh Crater is also famous, that is about 3.5 kilometers in diameter, is a potential meteoritic crater in Kota Plateau in Rajasthan. Apart from meteorites, the other component of the solar system are also important, like comets. So what is a comet? It is a celestial object consisting of a nucleus of ice and dust. Okay, when near the sun, the tail of gas and dust particles pointing away from the sun. So because it is made of ice and dust, okay, so when it reaches around the sun, there is a tail, that is a release of this particular dust particle and gases that looks like a tail of this comet. So there are periodical and non-periodical comets that we divide. So some comets appear in a particular time period and some are randomly appearing. So periodical comets can be seen again and again at a fixed interval. The most famous is Halley's Comet. So that is important. Halley Comet completes one revolution around the sun in 76 years. So it last appeared in 1986 and it is further going to appear in future in 2062 again.
So now, when we have learnt about the various components and the structure of our solar system, its various characteristics, the characteristics of different planets, its moon, and several facts associated with it. So in the next lecture, we'll be learning about our own planet, that is the planet Earth. So stay safe, stay tuned, take care.